Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Red Raptor Writes. Today I get to review the third and final Jurassic World movie, Dominion. For those of you new to my channel, even though I love dinosaurs and I love the first two Jurassic Parks, I am not a fan of the JW series in the slightest. Well, except for Camp Cretaceous. Yeah, there have been some good scenes and enjoyable characters scattered throughout. Overall, it's my opinion that they've only amounted to poorly written cash grabs that feel way too over the top and too silly. They're more in line with Sharknadoes than Jurassic Parks. I'll come back to those two soon in re-reviews because my opinions have changed while rewatching them in preparation for the third installment. So, that leaves us with Dominion. If you don't want spoilers, here's what I'll say. It was bad. Bad, but bad for entirely new reasons.
I'm not making the same mistakes again.
No, you're making all new ones.
That's not to say there's no enjoyment to be had. No, I'm sure fans can find something to appreciate, but overall, I found it really tedious, boring even. From here on out, I'll be talking major spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet and still want to, I suggest you click away now. Also, before I begin, I have to point out that I'll be reviewing this movie as a movie. I know there are some diehard fans out there who really just come to see some dinosaur action, and that's fine, you do you. However, I'm looking at this from a filmmaking perspective. This franchise didn't become so big just because of dinosaur action. You can get that anywhere. The original Jurassic Park is still one of the greatest films ever made with endearing characters, well-explored themes, masterful cinematography, groundbreaking special effects, and yes, excellent action. Okay, now I'm going on a long tangent. Time for the positives. Let's dig this up. Even if this review will be mostly negative, I have to be fair by acknowledging where the new Jurassic World worked. I swear it's not all doom and gloom. First off, the characters. Now, there are a lot of problems with how they're written, and I will get to those, but I'm gonna be nice first. Each returning world character is better than they were in the previous ones. Owen gets to emote a little bit more as Maisie's father figure. Franklin stops whining and screaming for a change. Then Claire is in every movie, but hey, still better than Hoskins, the worst character to ever grace this series. Even the new girl, Kayla, is not bad. All she is a tough pilot, so what more can I say? You probably noticed the trend that no one is amazing or even good, but more tolerable. Maisie doesn't screw the world over in this one, so there's a plus.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Each of the series' veterans are handled well, being treated with respect, unlike, say, the Star Wars sequels, which constantly humiliated and undermined their returning cast members. I've been upset for the past 21 years that Ellie and Alan were split up in Jurassic Park 3, so now I can smile knowing they rectified that horrible decision. It took them long enough, but still. I also like that the legacy characters had a major role to play, perhaps even more major than the JW cast. It was as much the old as the new. Probably necessary considering how underwhelming the world characters are, but still nice. They didn't serve as pure fan service cameos like Ian's role in Fallen Kingdom. Nah, Jeff Goldblum gets the respect he deserves here. This all leads to my next point, which are the character interactions. Similar to No Way Home, it's great to see the old and new guys meet up. The small moments of bonding are Dominion's best moments. In fact, there should have been way more of this. No surprise that it's good character work and not dinosaur action that makes the movie. But now I'm transitioning into negativity, so let's save that point for later. In other news, I'm happy to see a blend of practical effects and CGI again. An over-reliance on computers makes movies look more like PS2 games. Just look at the first JW for instance. With animatronics and puppets, our eyes acknowledge that these creatures were really there on set interacting with the actors. As far as technology's progressed, our eyes can still distinguish the real from the fake. Then even when some shots are in CGI, they're still grounded back into reality with the practical. That's what made the original two look so good even compared to more recent films. Glad Universal learned their lesson. Now on to the negatives. Oh man, part of me was hoping for a surprise that despite the odds, despite the last two installments, and despite some ugly designs, maybe Colin Trevorrow could pull it off. This was the movie he wanted to make. This is what it's all been building towards. This is where the Jurassic World name lives or dies. So what did he choose to do in a world overrun by dinosaurs? Locusts. He chose locusts.
What?
I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but one you didn't need that Jurassic franchise for. Any espionage movie could have been made about stopping a genetics company from sabotaging food production with locusts. Heck, this was the inciting incident for The Land Before Time 5, so why waste a story that has non-avian dinos across the globe to be about locusts? Well, this is what the JP cast is tackling by breaking into Biosyn. But Owen and Claire are mainly focused on rescuing Maisie, and it should go without saying, but apparently not, that just because something was in the book, like Biosyn sabotaging farmers, doesn't mean it was executed well in the movie, or should have been in the movie to start with. So I can segue into two places from here, either the terrible villain plot, or the sloppy first half. I'll go with the slop. For the Minions first half, it feels more like two completely disjointed films edited into one. On one hand is the whole locust thing, then on the other is exploring the new paleo black market in search of Maisie and Beta, Blue's child. The end result feels extremely disjointed. While one side of the movie is playing, you almost forget that the other side is still happening. We're jarred back and forth between these competing plot lines. Then, once everyone makes it to the Biosyn facility, the entire underground subplot is totally lost, like literally never mentioned again. Characters involved with it leave just as soon as they came. It isn't until way into the story that we see the overall connection, which is super forced. So, huge retcon, Benjamin Lockwood himself didn't create Maisie, but her mother, Charlotte, did. So, why the big breakup between Lockwood and Hammond? Sorry for expecting something well written. Anyway, when creating Maisie, Charlotte added a new gene to prevent some genetic disease that she had. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but Dr. Wu needs to learn from Charlotte how to insert genes into a genome. The legendary Henry Wu, who has been splicing DNA for literal decades, who brought dinosaurs back to life, doesn't know how to edit genes? Guys, I learned this in a college introductory course. Cloning and modifying organisms have been real-life science for coming on 3 decades, but in a science fiction world where dinosaurs have frog DNA, this is the cutting edge? So, Henry hunts for knowledge so that he can splice the giant locust DNA to be less harmful to crops. But didn't Biosyn make the locusts anyway? Shouldn't they have known? This is a head scratcher because it seems like there's a giant conspiracy to kill off other non-Biosyn crops, but when we get to Biosyn, they're trying to solve the problem under the guise of now CEO Dodgson. Dodgson even hires mercenaries to track down and kidnap Maisie so that she can be brought back to Biosyn for Dr. Wu to experiment with. So clearly he's on board with fixing the locusts. So was this Biosyn's plan, Wu's plan, or not? That brings me to my next point of confusing character motivations. We looked at Wu, let's move on to Dodgson. Really, it seems like he just wants money, so he's positioning Biosyn into a near-complete takeover of the world's food supply. But at the same time, he has Wu looking for a way to stop the locusts. Boring villain anyways, didn't care for him. Dr. Malcolm is also weird because in an out-of-character move, he works for Biosyn. Maybe this was purely for espionage, but from what the script tells us, it's more that he started working there, then later was fed information on how terrible they are. Ian Malcolm isn't someone who would sign on to mitigate the disaster, he's more someone who would refuse to even be a part of such a thing, so this seemed out of character for me. And of course, then there's Ramsey, who at first you'd think is some low-level intern or something who gives tours. Nope, you find out he's Dodgson's right-hand man. Despite them never having any significant interaction of any kind, we're supposed to feel emotional in this one scene where Ramsey reveals that he's been an imposter all along. It feels so forced, like Anakin's midichlorian count levels of force. With all that being said, I still haven't even touched on the worst part yet. The dinosaurs. Honestly, Dominion left me bored out of my mind because there is so much dinosaur action. Nearly every scene needs some unnecessary chase sequence with a random dinosaur or other prehistoric animal that the writers still call dinosaurs. I was on the verge of knocking out in the theater. My girlfriend too, who was with me, was about to knock out. The movie just got super repetitive. Those character interactions I mentioned earlier kept getting cut short to make room for all these unnecessary scenes. We get the Atrociraptor, Quetzalcoatlus, Pyroraptor, Therizinosaurus, Dilophosaurus, Dimetrodon, Tyrannosaurus, Giganotosaurus, one right after the next. It just got so tedious. Gosh, I was begging for it to stop. Maybe breathe for a few minutes. With so many animals fighting for screen time, what are supposed to be intense action sequences end up becoming white noise. The first Jurassic World mocked that the public was bored since they got used to dinos. No, dinos got boring because the series started shoving them in our faces every 5 seconds. It is commonly and correctly stated how the original classic only had dinosaurs on screen for about 15 minutes out of a 2-hour runtime. It seems like with each new sequel, the percentage of screen time taken up by them increases. Universal thinks that there's a positive relationship between dinos and screen time, but in fact, it's an inverse one. The more and more each film focuses on epic action, yo, the less focus goes into compelling characters and a good story. Hence why they keep getting dumber and dumber, now on par with Sharknado. So adding more dinosaurs does not make for a better movie. Flaunting all these new additions isn't a good thing. We should ask less of what dinosaurs are going to appear and more how well they'll be integrated into the plot. I've said it before and I'll say it again, dinosaurs are not the end goal, they are a means to an end, just like any great action movie would treat its sequences. Okay, one final super minor point. I found it annoying how so often when a new dinosaur makes an appearance, one of the characters needs to point it out by name. Like, oh, there's the Dreadnoughtus. This is a Atrociraptor, it likes lasers. That's a Quetzalcoatlus. Here comes the Giganotosaurus, the largest predatory dinosaur ever. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but it reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon, with that one kid who keeps saying the dragon names along with all the dumb facts. It's played for laughs there, but unintentionally hilarious here. That last one is a complete lie though. T-Rex was the biggest in terms of mass, which is what largest means. Could I have kept going on with those negatives? Yup. Can someone go through the Minions scene by scene to pick apart how nothing remotely makes sense? Definitely. Am I going to? No, we don't have time for that. Plus, I'm sure other YouTubers have that covered. This third JW defends itself like Russia. Hear me out. There's so much one can easily conquer, but there is only so far one can advance. So much one can devastate before they get tired and need to retreat. Now, I'm sure there's a massive fan base for the JW trilogy, and this blockbuster in particular, but I'm going to be honest with you and not cave into peer pressure. Jurassic World Dominion is not a good movie by any stretch. It fails on such a fundamental level. The first Jurassic World felt malicious, Fallen Kingdom felt poorly confused, and Dominion feels boring. Very, very boring. If you like it, good for you. I just never want to sit through this again. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like, subscribe, and check out my social media. See you next time.